Tuesday, March 12th, in time for the Board of County Commissioners meeting of Indian River County. We are going to begin with a moment of silent reflection for first responders, which will be followed by the invocation by Reverend Michael York of the First Presbyterian Church, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Susan Adams. Please rise. Reverend York.
Let us pray. High God and holy God, you rule the ways of peoples and govern every earthly government. Your glory shines throughout the world. We commend to your merciful care our nation, our state, and our community, that we may live securely in peace and may be guided by your providence. Give all in authority the wisdom and strength to know your will and to do it. Help them remember that they are called to serve the people as lovers of truth and justice. Through the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Reverend York, for the prayer.
Yeah, much better.
Before moving on, I just want to note that the Johns Island reuse project item is not on today's agenda. Last week, we postponed it because there's a study being done, which will hopefully help us make the right decision with that going forward. Right now, it looks like that'll probably be on around the end of April, the first week of May. So if you have been of interest and are on the email list, you'll get updates, and we'll hope to keep everybody appraised of what's happening there. Moving on to additions and deletions, I would like, if possible, to add one item, 14A1, which will be a letter to the FDOT secretary. This is in light of the most recent 16th death that's occurred on Brightline, and in part a reaction to the PABs, which didn't have a decision by the FDFC last week when some of us were up there. And we're hoping to have a couple counties perhaps write a letter to FDOT secretary and invite him to our community. So if possible, I'd like to add that under my items. Does anybody else have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Move approval as amended.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Fleischer, second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. I'm quite happy to announce the next item, which is a proclamation and presentation of the 2019 Annual Golf Tournament benefiting veterans of Indian River County by Curtis Paulson, past First President Sergeant Vic Diaz, retired, and Sergeant Gary James, retired, Veterans Council of Indian River County. And Mr. Paulson, come on up.
At once.
Now, we're particularly honored today because this is one of the first times I've seen Mr. Paulson with a tie in the chambers. I feel like
Feels
I'm
good.
expecting even greater things from you today, Mr. Paulson.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, and thank you for having us also. As you all may or may not know, I started a golf tournament for veterans of the county of Indian River 5 years ago, and started out with thinking it was just going to be a small tournament. Well, obviously anybody who was there last year knows that we had over 160 golfers. This thing has become a behemoth. So this year I decided that we were going to go ahead and do the tournament with the veterans, Vietnam veterans of Indian River County. And I'm going to let Vic Diaz speak to what they do, and it's all you.
Morning.
As Curtis said, I'm with Vietnam Veterans of Indian River County. Well, years ago, we partnered with Every Dream Has a Price. We know that there's homeless veterans out there in the forest. We know because we go out and count them. We find them. To date, we're now managing 19 beds for homeless veterans and their family. The mission's not done. There's more out there. So we have partnered, once again, with Every Dream Has a Price, and we've asked them to build another one. And shortly we will be breaking ground on another home that hopefully this will house homeless families or homeless veterans. Once that's done, we're going to hopefully build 2 more. All this takes money, obviously, and that's why, i.e. the golf tournament for homeless veterans. My group is committed to eliminating homeless veterans in Indian River County sooner than later. So this is what we do, and of course it takes money. We have to, once we build them, we have to furnish them and make sure that there's food and everything inside that would actually feel like their home. If you have a chance, on 8th Court, 38th Place, 38th Place, we built one several years ago. It's a duplex that houses 10 homeless veterans. If you walk in there, you'll think you're in your home. That's what we do, and that's what we will continue to do until there are no more homeless veterans left in Indian River County. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vic.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having us again. And like Vic said, just so that there's no misunderstanding, this golf tournament is strictly for the homeless veterans and the care of homeless veterans in Indian River County. So there's no crossover monies into any other pot. So the golf tournament itself is on Saturday, June the 15th, 2019, at Sandridge. It's where we've had it for several years. We continue to use Sandridge. We try to keep the tournament at a county facility and keep the money in the county. The proceeds stay in the county, stays with the veterans in the county. So again, Saturday, June the 15th, at Sandridge, registration's at 7 a.m. We start the tournament at 8 a.m. We'll have a young lady doing the national anthem. We'll have the prayer, as we always do. One of our sponsors, Route 60 Hyundai, they'll have the car out for the hole-in-one prize, and hopefully, somebody will be able to win that. The tournament is $70 per golfer. That includes your green fees, your golf, your cart, your lunch, the awards, which is a pretty good deal. Information, VV is in Victor Victor, so it's VVIRCgolf.com. You can see it up there on the monitors. To register or request sponsorship, you can call 772-567-2217, or you can email us at info@vvircgolf.com. So again, the phone number 772-567-2217 or info@vvircgolf.com. And the Vietnam Veterans of Indian River County, we are a 501c3 foundation. So the money that comes in, the money that's donated, it's, as silly as the tax structure is, it is tax deductible. But again, for our homeless veterans, June the 15th, Sandridge, we saw some of you guys out there last year. We'd love to see each and every one of you out there this year. But, most of all, we appreciate all the support you've given us over the years. Thank you so much.
One other thing, Commissioners, that telephone number, the 567-2217, it might sound familiar to you. That's Mary Snyder. She used to run the libraries for y'all. So Mary's on board with us, and being we're all Army guys, well, except for Vic. Vic's a Marine. There's a lot of paperwork involved. Yeah. But so we recruited a lot of the librarians within the county that are going to help us out with this paperwork. And as Gary said, we look forward to seeing you all.
Curtis, if you could go ahead and put me down for a foursome, I'm putting a team together. I've got Tim Gerard from Gerard Manufacturing is in,
Okay.
and Jason Atwell from AAG Live, and I'm working on a fourth one, but we'll have a team.
Roger that.
So put us down.
As long as it isn't a PGA professional.
I can vouch for that, and then no.
I got one other thing I forgot to speak of. We finally got a new administrator down in West Palm Beach. If you all been down to that VA in West Palm, she actually lives in Vero part-time. She's coming with her family, and we also have about 16 players from West Palm Beach that are coming up from the Veterans Outreach programs that they have over there, the administration, and their IG is coming also. So there are going to be a lot of good people out there.
Mr. Chairman, yes, and Sarge, you and Vic and Gary have all intimated that, you know, all the funds stay here. I have to tell you, working with you for 13 years, that epitomizes what the organization is about, and the more importantly is you validate charity and benefit to the right source, and everything stays here. And we truly do appreciate that, because that's not always the case, and that's why you've stepped up to ensure that those other folks that were hanging around in our community, that were taking dollars out of our community for their own greater good and not for the benefit of veterans, we basically have eliminated them by the structure of all of the efforts that you have done and every effort of the council as well. So we appreciate that, and I want to thank you. And you're easily supported. The challenge is, I never played golf. So we'll figure out how we're going to do that as we've done each year.
I've heard that you're going to be practicing up on the new the place up on US 1 anyway.
Yes,
so
that's tonight for the Live Like
that
Cole
might break you in
Foundation.
over big shots then.
And that's helping our veterans.
There you go.
It's all for
Exactly.
veterans. Thank you.
It's all the same pot. You know, we're all just here to help each other. And, you know, big government can do a little bit, state government, but the local government is where it really happens. And I know that. I think you all know that. So thank you for everything.
Chris, have a great event.
You also.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We will now move on to the approval of the minutes.
Move approval.
And was that for the meeting of December 18th or the 18th,
Both.
8th?
All three.
All three?
All three, yeah.
Very good. Motion from Commissioner Fleischer, second by Commissioner Adam for the minutes of December 18th, January 8th, and January 15th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. There's one information item. Anybody want to pull it for further discussion? If not, we will move to the consent agenda. Would anybody care to have anything pulled from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull item 8C.
Anybody else want to pull anything from the consent? Would anybody from the public care to pull anything from the consent agenda this morning for further discussion? There being none, be happy to get
Approval
it.
as amended.
A motion from, to approve as amended from Commissioner Fleischer. I'll be happy to, Commissioner O'Brien seconds it. And so the consent agenda is approved. Commissioner, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Commissioner O'Brien, 8C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the quarterly tourist development tax report from the clerk's office, and just two interesting things. One is, as we've talked about in the past, the impact of the red tide on our community. If you look at the hotel motel numbers, it would at first appearance seem that it went up slightly from the quarter a year ago, but part of that current quarter income was thanks to Jeff and his audit team. They were able to bring in some back taxes under the audit process. So if you take that out, we actually had a shortfall of almost $57,000 from the hotel motel industry during that quarter, which again I think reflects the impact of the red tide. And if you kind of do the math, that would equate to about $1,400,000 of room rental to get that 4% of $56,800. So, you know, a little over $1 million of lost revenue to the hotels and motels, and that doesn't count the lost tips and wages of the food servers and the staff and all those kind of things. So it's a huge impact. So again, highlights the importance of keeping our waters clean and our water quality up. Interesting though, if you look at the short-term rentals, they were actually up about $55,000 during that same period. So I don't know, Jeff, is it just, do you think the short-term rentals are more widespread and weren't so focused right on the beach that they weren't impacted by the tide? Or?
It's a good point that you made about the red tide, and that similar philosophy is really affecting the short-term rentals as well, because most of that increase in the short-term rentals was a result of audit collections as well.
Oh, that was too, okay.
Yeah, so I want to give my internal auditor, Ed Halsey, credit, because we're making big progress on the short-term rentals, and our goal is to get 100% compliance, and we will get there. So
Right.
that if you do the same thing that you did with the hotels, we'd be under on the short-term rental as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for chasing all that down and being on top of it. Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll move approval of item 8C.
We have a motion from Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Flesher. Any other comment by the audience? All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. We will now move on to constitutional officers and government agencies. Indian River County Property Appraiser Wesley Davis is going to give us a status report and a request for funding for an audit. Mr. Davis, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioners. Good to see everybody. And yes, things are going well over there.
Name and address for the record. I thought you would have had that down by now.
Across the street, Building B. How's that?
Across the street.
7001 Avenue, Mr. Chairman. Things are starting to slow down for me over there. Thank you. It was like drinking water out of a fire hose for quite a long time. And now I'm starting to get the legs underneath. We've got a fantastic team over there. And I'm not going to just say a fantastic staff. It's truly everybody acts as a team, and they go from one task to the next. We recently finished up the homestead exemptions, the ag classifications. That deadline was March. So we still can have some wiggle room should somebody have a legitimate reason why they missed that deadline. Just let us know. We want to ensure that we give everybody the opportunity to get any exemption that they are entitled to. That includes our veterans. The legislature, as you know, seems like every year they add something to getting a little bit more of a discount or a reduction in your assessed values. And so the safest thing is if you're over 65 and you have any kind of a disability and you're a veteran, you really need to give us a call to make sure that you're getting what the state statutes allow you to get. With that said, I will tell you another thing too on that item that you pulled, Commissioner. Whenever Kristen Daniels gave that report, my ears went up as far as looking into how that affected the tourist tax. I just got finished with a week-long class up in Tallahassee at the Department of Revenue, and that was basically assessing properties based on their income and how that determines value. And that just underscores the efforts that this commission has towards some of these environmental issues. If your income's getting hit, that could hit your bottom line as far as your assessed value. So it's real, and so I appreciate you pulling that, but I was thinking about that last time Kristen gave the quarterly report also. With that said, I'm here with our clerk, Jeff Smith, and with the passing of Mr. Nolte, and that period prior to January 7th, whenever the executive order was signed, where Governor Scott appointed me a property appraiser, there's a period between the end of the fiscal year of 2018 and January 7th that is, in effect, hasn't been audited. The audits for 2018, they're done. I believe they're almost complete if they're not already written. Okay, and we'll be getting those audits, which every constitutional office will be getting those. Clerk Smith suggested that we do a stub audit for the period from the beginning of the fiscal year until January 7th, just to go in there and make sure that everything is in order. Of course, anything after January 7th, I own. Anything prior to that, it's not who owns it, who doesn't own it. It's just make sure that if there is something that we remedy it and move forward. Don't anticipate finding anything. It's just something that prudence would suggest as far as proper fiscal management. And then in addition to that, this will start the process of our citizen audit committee. I see I've got Councilman Vice Mayor Bob Iwater here from Indian River Shores. I see CPA Glenn Herron over there. We've got Chip Landers is going to be on there from the real estate business. We have Daniel Stump as one of them. And as you'll start to see, there's a thick vein of individuals from the property or from the tax Payers Association. We wanted to get some good oversight. That'll be probably the first people we hand this over to, just to let them look through it, as well as the audit coming in from last year. So I don't want to be long-winded or anything. I'll wrap that up. But the cost is not to exceed $8,500, and it's going to be done by the same firm that does the county's auditing, Raymond. They're the ones that just finished up, so they'll just go through and just look at that stub period of time. Jeff, is there anything you need to?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. I did recommend that Wesley have this done, and the auditors are strictly going to do a financial review and look at the stub period. It was my opinion that we didn't need to pay the auditors to do an operational review. His transition committee could handle that very well with the expertise that they are assembling. So this $8,500 not to exceed contract is only for financial look at the office between this for the stub period.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions for either Mr. Davis or Mr. Smith?
You know, these constitutional officers that come groveling up for money and they can't live within their budgets, I tell you. It just,
If it makes you feel any better.
this is going to be so much fun, Wesley. I can't wait till the budget.
I just had my first Property Appraisers Association conference, and you know what they were saying? Those darn county commissioners, I swear.
Dang county commissioners.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the approval of the request for the stub audit.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Fleischer. I'll ask if there's anybody from the public who would like to comment on this item. Anybody from the public? There being none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Davis and Mr. Smith. We will move on to the next constitutional officers item, which is Indian River County Clerk of Court and Controller Jeffrey Smith, application for citizen member to the Value Adjustment Board.
Move approval of the Mr. Kordiak.
Motion from Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Any comments from anyone? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Smith. We will now move on to Office of Management and Budget, Children's Services, funding allocation for fiscal year 2019-2020, and it looks like Kristen is going to lead us on this. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Solari and Commissioners. Kristen Daniels, Budget Director. Today I have for you the Children's Services funding allocation for fiscal year 2019-20. So I'll start with a brief history here. Back on March 14th of 2017, the board approved a 3-year plan to fund children's services at the full 1/8 of a mil funding cap. This is per Indian River County Ordinance 99-01. So the first 2 years of the plan have been implemented, and the third and final year of this funding phase is due to be completed in fiscal year 19-20. So when the board originally made the motion back in 2017, the fiscal year 19-20 funding allocation of $1,970,091 was based on an estimated 3% tax roll growth. However, the tax roll growth was higher than anticipated. So based on the fiscal year 18-19 tax roll, the 1/8 of a mil allocation for fiscal year 19-20 is actually $2,062,611, and this is $92,520 over the originally approved amount and $398,646, or 24% over the 18-19 funding level. It's also been brought to staff's attention that the Children's Services Advisory Committee has requested $50,000 for a needs assessment. This needs assessment is a requirement of IRC Ordinance 99-01 as well. So staff proposes that the needs assessment be funded from the $2,062,611 allocation, and this would leave $2,012,611 available for the Children's Services agencies. And that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Any questions from Ms. Daniels?
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Zork. I'll ask if there's anybody from the public who'd like to comment on this issue. There being none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Kristen, thank you very much. And we had one item, and that was under my items, which comes up now. And I just want to note that the Brightline issue continues to go along, and it continues to go along at a very fast pace. There was recently a 16th death there, and I think that we all know that one of the biggest issues with this is the lack of engagement by the Florida Department of Transportation in this issue, especially in regards to safety issues. I'll note that both 4 years ago and I think 3 years ago, we wrote letters to the then Secretary of the Florida Department of Transportation inviting him to discuss this issue, and neither time did we get so much as a reply. I'll also note that under, I believe it's the Senate actions tomorrow, the Senate's going to talk about the confirmation of Kevin Thibault as the new Secretary of Transportation, and it seems to me that this might be a good time to try to engage him on this. We also note that we have safety legislation that Senator Mayfield particularly is pushing up in Tallahassee, which will try to get FDOT engaged in this. But I believe that this is both a good time to try to get as many people as possible, especially people related to FDOT, engaged in these safety issues. And given that Mr. Thibault, if tomorrow goes well for him, will now be an instrumental player in this, it may be a good time to try to engage him a little further. So with that, I actually can't take credit for this item. It was actually suggested by Ms. Meal, so I will ask Ms. Meal if she has any further comments to make. Good morning, name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Susan Meal, 1370 St. Catherine's Circle. Thanks so much for allowing me to talk to you this morning just for a few minutes. I won't take a lot of your time. I think we all know here some of the issues that we're facing with this All Aboard Florida project. I wanted to introduce myself formally as the spokesperson for a new statewide organization called the Florida Alliance for Safe Trains. And we are truly an alliance. We're partnering with Florida Not All Aboard, Citizens Against the Train, and thousands of citizens around the region, and also a group now in the Tampa area called No Tax for Tracks, who shares our concern about taxpayer dollars being used for transportation. So we are the Florida Alliance for Safe Trains, and our goal is that Virgin trains should operate safely without taxpayer dollars or not operate at all. And I wanted to thank Mr. Reingold, Commissioner Solari, and O'Brien for joining us in Orlando last week during the Florida Development Finance Corporation's board meeting to review an additional bond allocation for Virgin Trains, which would bring their grand total of private activity bonds up to about $3 billion if they get it and can sell them. I do have a version of the letter that we've suggested you all consider sending to Secretary Thibault. Would you like me to read it for?
No.
No, okay.
We'll
Good.
If you give it to Dylan, Dylan and I will be happy to take it and rework it a little bit as we see
Okay.
appropriate and get it ready for my signature,
Okay.
if the board approves it.
And as you know, our concerns were greatly compounded not only by the OPAGA study that shows there are no regulations right now for these trains operating at 80 to 125 miles per hour, but as Commissioner Solari said, there has been a 16th death. And we're looking at this and all the information surrounding the project as becoming a crisis when we think about the fact that these trains through our county will go 30 miles faster than they're already going. We have a Facebook page, Florida Alliance for Safe Trains. We have a website, flsafetrains.com. And on that Facebook, you can also see the commissioner's comments at the meeting, and a very enlightening and somewhat frightening video from a woman in Hollywood, Florida, who videotaped the train going through a crossing just below her condominium. and the noise is deafening, and she's highly concerned. And when you see how fast that train's going and realize that it's going to go so much faster, you understand our concern. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beal. All right, I think we understand the issue. We have- Commissioner Fletcher.
I'd be happy to move your item, which came from Ms. Meal, and that's inclusive of accepting her letter, which may have to be massaged with the chairman and the attorney before being forwarded.
Thank you. Motion from Commissioner Fletcher. I'll be happy to, second from Commissioner Zork. Any other discussion? Anybody in the audience want to comment on this issue? There being none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Matter passes 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Meal. Moving on to the next section of the agenda, which is our first time with it. It's Commissioners' Open Dialogue. I'll note that we'll be taking no votes under this session. It's basically just informational updates by the commissioners that they feel are appropriate on a given Tuesday. Well, the given Tuesday of the month when we have this issue. I'm going to begin with Commissioner Zork and move towards to the right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one community item to bring to everyone's attention is tomorrow at 5 p.m. I'll be hosting a human trafficking awareness forum, mainly to shed the bigger light on the picture. Obviously, there's been a lot of things in the news lately, but the bigger picture is what hasn't been talked about in the areas of human trafficking. Just two small statistics that were very much eye-openers for myself is that half of the people in the 2017 trafficking information from the state of Florida, half of the people trafficked are U.S. citizens. It's not all a foreign problem. And 25% of the persons that were trafficked are minors under the age of 18, some as young as 12 and 13 years old. So it's a much bigger problem than what we've seen in the news lately, and we hope with the help of some of the agencies, the Union River County Sheriff's Office, Place of Hope, which is one of the leading advocates for human trafficking as well as foster care, the Alliance for Human Trafficking of the Treasure Coast, and other agencies that will be here to answer questions, have information, and we're just asking those that are interested to attend to get more information so that they also can be aware and possibly help spot situations where somebody may be trafficked here in our community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Adams.
Sure. So the first thing I'd like to mention is the Indian River County Fair started, and for those of you that don't know, my son participates in 4-H, and so we've been at the fair a lot for the past couple days, and we'll be there for the rest of the week. But I just wanted you guys to know that there's a lot of young kids involved in 4-H these days. When I was in 4-H, it was a lot of high school kids. We did steers and stuff like that, but they have a lot of young kids involved in chickens and cavies, which is guinea pigs, rabbits, and citrus trees. So it's nice to see that ag spirit alive with the young kids moving up. The other thing I wanted to ask about is I get a lot of inquiries about code enforcement issues. That's probably one of the #1 complaints I get, or questions, not so much complaints. And it seems like there's confusion about how the code enforcement process works. So I was wondering, I know that there's a little snippet on the code enforcement part of the website, but I didn't know if it would be possible to maybe put together like a brochure or a flyer that we could give out when we're speaking to some of the community associations and property owners groups, just frequently ask questions about how the code enforcement process works, and maybe like the top 5 complaints that they get so people know how to address those. Because that's the other thing, people don't realize that they're violating code and then they get hit with something. So I'd be happy to work with somebody on that, but I just know that might be helpful.
Jason, that seems to be easy enough thing to deal with.
Yes, we can work to get something like that out.
Okay. And then the last thing, Commissioner O'Brien and I will be going to Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council this week on Friday, and they are doing a presentation on Resilient Coastlines Program through DEP, so I look forward to bringing some information back on that. And then the city of Port St. Lucie is talking about their big McCarty Ranch water quality project. So maybe we can learn some information from that to bring back to work on some issues here. So I'll keep you all posted. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Mrs. Meal mentioned earlier, I was part of the team that went to Orlando, and it's kind of discouraging to go before that FDSC board because the Virgin Train guy made his presentation. It was all rosy projections and how they're going to be so successful and all this stuff. And then Dylan got up and presented the actual facts and their history and how much money they're losing, and their ridership actually dropped. But yet, you know, just reading the tea leaves, you can tell this board was still going to vote to approve them if they hadn't run out of time. And it's really, really discouraging that presented with facts, and Dylan pointed out that they had a duty to make sure that the project was financially feasible and there's a reasonable belief that the bondholders would get paid back. And for them to just kind of have the attitude, well, we're just here to kill time until we can vote to approve this and move on, it was really pretty discouraging. So, but we will keep fighting and keep pointing out the facts that they are losing money. And I think the fact that they ran out of time and didn't take a vote works to our favor because they wanted to price these bonds in mid-March and sell them in April, and I think now that's going to get pushed back. And I think also we're getting a lot of good traction in the bond buyer newsletters and such, where they constantly bring up the fact there's litigation ongoing. So I think that helps the cause as well. So,
Commissioner, on that one, all I can say is for 10 years I've been trying to educate you as to the problems with this type of committee, and finally your eyes are opening. I'll just say the effort is finally worthwhile.
That was a little turnaround, huh?
Yeah, who saw that coming?
Are those governor-appointed commissioners?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, and here's the great thing. So one, it's supposed to be a 5-member board. Well, there's only 3 there. There's 2 vacancies. The chairman and the vice chairman, actually their terms expired a year ago. So, that's the first thing I said is, well, one, this is under protest because you two shouldn't be here because your terms expired. Now, when my term is up, I can't vote anymore. So I don't know.
Thank the Lord for small favors.
What is this pick on me?
Two good ones.
So yes, so it's a travesty the fact that they were even meeting in the first place.
Right.
And apparently there is some Senate glitch loophole that says, well, even if your term's expired, you can keep voting, until, why have a term then if there's no end to it? So anyway.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, but we'll keep it going. Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
very much,
Chairman, for the
Commissioner.
opportunity for you to beat up on me. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I
No,
do
that
have
was actually Bob holding back.
and I know that that's a rare occasion in itself, and I most certainly have the courage to overcome any adversity that you may wish to throw. That was very entertaining, but I do not have anything further to add to today's discussion.
In that case, we will move on to special district
Wow!
boards.
You want some gauze?
Environmental Control Board approval of the minutes of the meeting of
move
May.
approval of minutes of May 8th, 2018.
Motion by Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Zork. Any questions or comments on the minutes? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Go on to a satisfaction and release of Environmental Control Hearing Board
Move
lien.
approval of the release of lien.
We have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Flesher. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Resolution delegating certain authority to the Environmental Control Officer to satisfy and release Environmental Control Hearing Board liens.
Move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Flesher. Second by Commissioner Zork.
Mr. Chairman,
You want a little?
this is given staff approval to do what we just did in item 15C2. And I just want to make sure that's only if the lien has been paid in full. Is that correct?
Yes.
So there's no, staff isn't, making a judgment call on half the lien. It's paid in full, then staff level authority to release the lien. Okay.
Total satisfaction.
Any other questions for staff? Anybody from the audience have any questions or comments? There being none, there was a motion by Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned.